can see, it is a certified cloud practitioner official practice exam, and I'm going to start this exam in front of you. Again, the idea is to basically talk about some important keywords and to showcase you that what are the type of questions, what would be the format of questions, what would be the length of questions, what would be the complexity of questions. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hope you all are doing good. So this is my next recording on the next AWS official practice test. So in my previous recording, I had recorded one of the official practice tests from the skill builder, and I am going to make one more recording for the next one. Okay. So I'm quickly sharing my screen and let me just talk about the next practice test. So this is a skill builder. If you can see, it is a certified cloud practitioner official practice exam, and I'm going to start this exam in front of you. Again, the idea is to basically talk about some important keywords and to showcase you that what are the type of questions, what would be the format of questions, what would be the length of questions, what would be the complexity of questions. Okay, so that we will discuss as a part of this particular recording session. So I'm saying start here, and you can read about it. I will again put a focus on this one. AWS official practice exam provide practice with the same question style and the rigor as a certification exam. Okay, so it is saying that it's going to provide you the practice with the same question style. So keep your focus on this so that you can get an understanding that what I am recording for you, that is going to give you some real-time exposure. Okay, let's say start. And now the first question we have in front of us, that is, which architecture design principle applies to the concept of right sizing the cloud infrastructure? Okay. Right sizing, this is an important keyword in the question. When we say right sizing, it can be with respect to overutilization or underutilization. Okay. If you are using the infrastructure as per your need, as per your requirement, and you are using not the infrastructure with respect to the excess resources you are provisioning, or you don't have any underutilization, it means you're optimizing the cost. So the correct answer for this particular question will be optimize for cost. The first one will not be correct because we are not talking about scaling here. Okay, right sizing has nothing to do with scaling. Making frequent small reversible changes, again, this is not true. This is something related to operational excellence. Perform operations as code, again related to operational excellence. Okay, let's say optimize for cost, and I will say confirm. So this is a correct choice. Okay, so you can use metrics from the currently running workload to select the right size and type to optimize for the cost. Okay, you can see make frequent small reversible changes is something related to operational excellence, and again perform operations as code is related to operational excellence. So B is a correct answer here, optimize for cost. Okay, let me move back to the next one. An application is receiving SQL injection attacks from multiple external resources. Which service or feature can help automate mitigation against these attacks? So it's talking about mitigation against SQL injection attack, and the straightforward answer would be web application firewall. Okay, you can read about it. It's a firewall that helps protect your web application from common web exploit that could affect application availability, compromise security, or consume excessive resources. So I'll put a stress on this keyword called SQL injection attacks. If SQL injection attacks is a part of your question, choose WAF as an answer. Okay. The other option, security group, is not correct. Elastic load balancing is not correct. Network ACL is not correct. Which of the following is a benefit of using an AWS managed service? You know that whenever you talk about managed service, so managed service reduce the administration overhead, or managed service reduce the operational overhead. You don't need to focus on the administrative tasks such as patching, backup, that will be taken care by the managed services. So straightforward, the answer would be reduced operational overhead for the company's IT staff. Increased fixed costs that can be predicted by finance team, nothing related to this. Removal of the need to have a backup strategy. Again, it's not related to our question. Removal of the need to follow compliance standard, not related. The correct option would be reduced operational overhead for a company's IT staff. Say confirm, and you can see A is a correct choice. Which service should we use to monitor EC2 instances for CPU and network utilization? So the CPU and network utilization are the metrics. And when we talk about metrics, the word which comes into our mind, that is CloudWatch. Okay. So monitoring service is CloudWatch. So I will say Amazon CloudWatch here. Okay. And you can see Amazon CloudWatch is a correct choice for this particular question. Next one. Which AWS service uses machine learning to identify sensitive data that is stored in Amazon S3 bucket? Again, when it is talking about the machine learning service to identify the sensitive data in S3, the straightforward answer would be Amazon Messy. Okay. Amazon Personalize is not a correct answer because this is a service that uses data to generate item recommendations for your users. Okay. It does not identify sensitive data in S3. Okay. If you scroll down, you can see Messy is a correct choice. It's a data security service that discovers sensitive data. It uses machine learning and pattern matching to identify sensitive data that is stored in S3 bucket. Cloud9 is not an answer because it is an IDE, cloud-based IDE. And again, Code Artifact is used as an artifact repository where you are going to keep your build packages ready for the deployment. Okay. So for this particular question, Amazon Messy would be the correct choice. Okay. Amazon Messy is the correct choice. A company needs access to the cloud support engineers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What is the least expensive AWS support plan that meets the requirement? So again, when it is asking about the least expensive AWS support plan, you know that 24/7 support is available in the enterprise and business. And business is basically less expensive than the enterprise. So the correct choice would be the business support. Okay. Which feature can you use to protect S3 bucket from accidental overwrite or deletion? Okay. When it comes to S3, you know that by default, if you are trying to basically upload the same object or an object with a same name, the existing one will be overwritten. How you can avoid that? You can avoid that with the concept of a versioning. Okay. Using versioning, you can create multiple versions of a single object and it will also provide you protection against accidental deletion. And that's my question. So bucket versioning would be the correct choice. A company wants to improve its security and audit posture by limiting EC2 inbound access. Okay. What should the company use to access instance remotely instead of opening inbound SSH ports and managing SSH keys? So here, you know that if you don't want to enable SSH on port 22 and still you want to connect to your EC2 instance, we have an option called Session Manager. So Session Manager would be the correct choice. Okay. EC2 key pair is a set of credentials. Okay. So it is not related to basically connect to the EC2 instance without enabling SSH. Okay. Session Manager is a correct choice. Identity and access management is something that is related to the management of identity and their permissions. And again, network ACL is not a correct choice. It is a firewall in VPC at a subnet level. Which AWS service can host a static website? Whenever static website comes into picture, the answer would be straightforward, Amazon S3. Okay. A company wants its employees to have access to the virtual desktop infrastructure to securely access company-provided desktop through the employee's personal devices. Which service should the company use to meet these requirements? Whenever it is talking about a virtual desktop infrastructure, straightforward, the answer would be workspaces. So keyword which you have to pay attention here, that is the virtual desktop infrastructure. Okay. You can again read about workspaces from here. So workspaces can run a cloud desktop directly on many kind of devices. Workspaces can run on PC, Mac, iPad, or Kindle Fire. You can basically interact with the company provided desktop through their personal devices. Okay. FSX for Windows file server, you know, it's a fully managed shared storage for Windows servers. Okay. AppSync, it is basically used to create, manage, and secure GraphQL APIs. Okay. And if you talk about AppStream, it is an application streaming service. It provides instant access to your desktop applications from anywhere. Okay. But here it is talking about you need to access virtual desktop infrastructure to securely access company provided desktop, okay, through the employee's personal devices. Okay, so this is not a correct choice. Okay, it is clearly mentioning here AppStream 2.0 does not provide access to virtual desktop infrastructure. So when virtual desktop infrastructure would be there, you have to go with the workspaces. Okay, next one. A large company has a workload that requires hardware to remain on premises. The company wants to use the same management and control plane services that it currently uses on AWS. Means if you want to extend the AWS infrastructure to on premises, the straightforward answer would be Outpost. Okay. You can relate that with a very good example of a coffee shop. Okay. So I can just tell you a story. Let's take an example of an organization. In front of an organization, there is a coffee shop outlet. Okay. So what is happening basically? The employees who are working in the organization during the break time, they are leaving the organization. They are going to the coffee shop outlet. They are basically enjoying the coffee shop products and they're spending time there. Okay. Now, like there is an observation. Observation is if a employee is leaving the organization and he is basically spending the time in the coffee shop outlet, if you will calculate the time, then productivity of the employee is getting reduced because they have to basically do a lot of things and it is a time consuming part in order to perform all these activities. So what the company owner has done, the company owner has asked the coffee shop vendor in order to open one outlet inside the company premises. Okay. So now if you will compare that from the existing situation, the time is getting saved. The employee productivity will be increased. So similar cases here, like if you want to extend the AWS infrastructure to your on-premises data center, but still you want to have the management at the AWS side, you can make use of the Outpost. Okay. For your knowledge, device farm is not a correct answer. It's a mobile application testing service. You can use it to perform automated testing. Okay. Fargate, you know, it's a serverless service and you can use ECS. You can use Fargate to run containers without the need to manage servers. Okay. Outpost, it gives you the ability to use AWS installed hardware on premises to extend and run native resources on premises. Okay. And ground station is used to control satellite communication, process satellite data, and scale satellite operations. So this is something related to the satellite. Okay. What is the benefit of moving to the AWS cloud in terms of improving time to market? When we say time to market, it means we want to come early in the market with our products. And for that, we have to make best use of our skill set. And best use of our skill set is a part of the business agility. Okay. So we can say that it increases business agility. And that is again a correct answer. A system automatically recovers from failure when a company launches its workload on the cloud service platform. Which pillar of the well-architected framework does this situation demonstrate? Again, the question is straightforward. It's talking about the ability to come out or to recover from the failure or interruption. And this is something related to reliability. Okay. So reliability would be the correct choice. You can see this pillar focuses on workload that perform their intended functions and how to recover quickly from failure to meet demands. Okay. And a straightforward explanation for reliability is something that can be trusted. Okay. So reliability is a correct choice. What are not the correct options? Cost optimizations, performance efficiency, and operational excellence. Okay. Let's move back to the next one. Okay. This one is saying this service or tool can a company use to visualize, understand, and manage AWS spending and uses over time. Okay. You want to visualize, you want to understand, you want to manage the AWS spending and uses over time. You know that for that, you can make use of Cost Explorer because using a Cost Explorer, you get the ability to visualize, to understand, and manage your spending and uses over time. Trusted advisor would not be correct. CloudWatch would not be correct. And budgets would not be correct for this situation. Okay. Which AWS service or feature can a developer use it to access services programmatically? So this question comes with respect to what are the different ways to interact with AWS services. Okay. If we talk about a web-based interface, the straightforward answer would be management console. If we talk about programmatic interface, then you have CLI and SDK. Out of CLI and SDK, what is an option available in your responses? We have the SDK available. Okay, so out of all four choices, management console, SDK, code deploy, code pipeline, AWS SDK is a correct choice. Okay, you can see it. A company wants to continuously monitor AWS account activity, including actions taken through the management console, SDK, and the command line tools. Means here you are talking about auditing the API calls made. Here you are talking about auditing the API activities. In a simple statement, who has done what? And CloudTrail gives you this picture. Okay. So CloudTrail is a correct answer for this particular question. You can see. Which database service provides in-memory data storage? When we talk about in-memory data storage, we know that Elastic Cache is the answer out of all these. Okay. DynamoDB, you know, it is a NoSQL, non-relational key value data store database service. Okay. Elastic Cache, it's a fully managed in-memory data caching service for databases. And I told you that you have to remember two more keywords with Elastic Cache, that is Redis and Memcached. These are the two supported database engines for Elastic Cache. Okay. If you talk about RDS, so RDS is a fully managed relational database service which provides supports for various database engines. For your knowledge, time stream is a database service for a time series data that you can persist to durable storage. Okay. According to the AWS shared responsibility model, which task is the responsibility of AWS for the workloads running on EC2? Okay. Whenever it is talking about the AWS responsibility, and in the question, if somewhere you can see a word physical hardware, straightforward choose that. So updating the physical hardware. Okay. Updating the operating system. So now it is talking about a guest operating system, that would be the responsibility of each customer. Okay. Updating the database engine. Obviously, if you're running your database on EC2, then it's your responsibility to update the patches to update the database engine. And user data is again the responsibility of customer, because customer provides the user data. Okay. So this is solely the responsibility of AWS. What is the responsibility of AWS under the AWS shared responsibility model? Again, try to check for the physical infrastructure or physical keyword. So straightforward, we have the fourth option as secure the physical infrastructure. The first one, it is clearly saying customer's application. The word customer is there, and customer is responsible for application optimization. So A would not be correct. Guest operating system is the responsibility of customer. Configure new resources within AWS account means provisioning AWS resources. That's again the responsibility of customer. What's left? D is left. And in D, we have a keyword called physical. So it will be the responsibility of AWS. Which service provides a simple way to set up a multi-account environment and govern it at a scale? When it's talking about the multi-account environment, you know the choice, that is Control Tower. Okay. If there would be an AWS organization and it was not talking about the best practices and governance at scale. Okay. So AWS organization is a service by which you can manage the multi-account architecture. Okay. When you talk about Control Tower, so Control Tower is allowing you to set up the AWS organization only. Means on the top of AWS organization, we have a Control Tower. But Control Tower use the best practices. There is a concept of a landing zone. So landing zone acts as a blueprint. Using that blueprint, Control Tower implements the best practices with the compliance and governance policies in order to set up your AWS organization. And here it was asking about govern it at scale. So Control Tower would be the correct choice. Trusted Advisor, you know, it is a recommendation service. It provides you a recommendation for areas to improve your environment. Security Hub provides a comprehensive view of how your environment compares to the security best practices. Control Tower, I told you, it gives you the ability to set up, govern, and manage multiple accounts. And Resource Access Manager, it gives you the ability to share AWS resources with any account within organization. Okay. But my question was to set up a multi-account environment and govern it at scale. So Control Tower would be the choice. After selecting EC2 dedicated host reservation, which pricing option would provide the largest discount? Straightforward when it's talking about the discount. And you have the options like no upfront, partial upfront, all upfront, hourly, on-demand payment. The correct choice would be all upfront payment. You can always relate it to your shopping scenario in your real time. If you're going to an outlet to purchase something, if you are paying everything like for that particular like product, you are going to get more discount as compared to converting that into EMI option. Okay. Which service can be used to migrate an active on-premises database to the cloud? When it's talking about databases and when migration is a keyword, the answer would be AWS Database Migration Service. Okay. Storage Gateway, it's a hybrid cloud storage service that provides on-premises access to the cloud storage. It's not true in this case. Application migration service, it gives you the ability to lift and shift servers. Means if you have to perform a lift and shift type of migration, you can go for the application migration service. Data sync is a data transfer service. It automates moving data between storage system and services. And DMS, which is a database migration service, it migrates relational databases, data warehouses, NoSQL databases, and other data stores. Okay. So here the choice would be DMS. Okay. Great. A company wants to ensure that two EC2 instances are in separate data center with minimal communication latency between the data center. Okay. This question is pointing towards the concept of availability zone, because when we talk about availability zone, those are the fault isolation data center. Okay. So you can read the option. The first option says there's EC2 instances in two separate regions connected with a VPC peering connection. Okay, not required. It's nowhere talking about geographical location or deploying your EC2 instances in different geographical location. Not true. So you can remove that it's asking you to deploy the EC2 instances in other regions. So I have removed A and C. B option says place EC2 instances in two separate availability zones within the same AWS region. It is pointing towards my question. But let me read option B. Place both the instances in a placement group for dedicated bandwidth. Okay. So when we are talking about this scenario, dedicated bandwidth, so it is something related to network performance. We want to improve the network performance. But here my goal is I want to ensure that my EC2 instances are deployed or EC2 instances are there in the separate data center. So correct choice would be the B. Okay. You can read about D. There are no placement group with dedicated bandwidth. Okay. Placement group can only run within the same availability zone to minimize latency. Okay. For a knowledge, placement group is a strategy that how you are placing your EC2 instances. So we have different type of placement group. We have spread placement groups and we have other types also. Okay. We have cluster placement group. We have spread placement group. Okay. But here it's not talking about like you are looking for the strategies in order to provide the best performance in order to reduce the downtime. Okay. Here, my requirement is to have my EC2 instances in separate data center. And as they mentioned that there is no such placement group with the dedicated bandwidth for dedicated bandwidth. Okay. Because when we talk about dedicated bandwidth means here I am specifying that this much bandwidth would be required for the communication purpose. Okay. So D would not be the correct choice. Which responsibility is shared between user and AWS? So now it is talking about shared responsibility. The correct choice would be provide awareness and training, straightforward. Okay. A company has existing software license that it wants to bring to AWS, but the licensing model requires licensing physical goods. So here, whenever it is talking about the software licenses and they are looking for a requirement which can meet their need, you can always go for the dedicated host. Okay. And whenever dedicated host comes into picture, you can always recall my example of hotel booking. Okay. So B is a correct choice. Launch an EC2 instance on a dedicated host. A is not correct choice. Launch an EC2 instance with default tenancy. C is a not correct choice. Create an on-demand capacity reservation and purchase dedicated reserved instances. Again, not a correct choice. Okay. A developer needed to access resources from the CLI. Which feature in IAM can the developer use for authentication? We know that if you are looking to programmatically access your AWS resources, AWS services, for the authentication purpose, you need the combination of access keys and secret keys. So correct choice would be the IAM access key. Okay. Which task require the use of AWS account root user? Very good question. So whenever it comes to AWS account root user, changing the support plan will be done with the root credential. Modifying EC2 instance type, not mandatory that you should be a root user. Grouping resources in system manager, it's something talking about the tagging your resources, okay? Not required that you should be a root user. Running application in EKS, again, it's not demanding that you should be a root user. Closing an AWS account, it will be required. You will have to be a root user. That's asking about two options. So changing an AWS support plan and closing an AWS account. These would be the correct choices, okay? A user has petabytes of data to migrate to AWS from an area where high-speed network connections are not possible. Which service is the fastest way to transfer the data? So see, first keyword is petabyte here. Second keyword is network connections, high speed are not possible. Means like if the person is going to have to transfer the data online, it will not be the fastest way because it's looking for the fastest way to transfer the data. And if you are looking for the offline data transfer services, you know that Snow Family is an option for you. So you can go for the Snowball Edge. Okay. That is the correct choice. You can see Snowball Edge is a correct choice. An online retail company has seasonal spikes sales several times a year, primarily around holidays. Demand is lower at other times. The company finds it difficult to predict the increasing infrastructure demand for each season. Which advantage of moving to cloud most benefit the company? Means they have a demand to be at spike several times a year. Okay. But they are finding it difficult in order to predict the increasing infrastructure. If you will move to the cloud, you know that the first thing you get that is elasticity. Elasticity is basically talking about the degree of automation with respect to meet the changes in demand. And second thing would be pay-as-you-go pricing. Means you don't need to procure the resources if you are not aware about the consistency of your business application. You can simply demand the resources whenever there is a need and you only have to pay for that. Okay. So it was asking me to choose two options. So I have chosen elasticity and pay-as-you-go pricing. Okay. Which is giving me the correct choices. Which cloud design principles can help increase reliability? I have to choose two options. So reliability means like something that can be trusted. And for trusting that, you need to test the recovery procedures because reliability says to come out of any interruption. Okay. So you need to test that your recovery procedures are in place. Okay. And automatically recovering from failure. Again, that is a principle of reliability. Okay. So I will say confirm. Which of the following are characteristics of regions and availability zones? Straightforward. Regions is a collection of multiple availability zones. So regions consist of multiple availability zones. A is not correct. Region bring AWS services to on-premise facilities. No. An availability zone contains several regions. It is not true. Okay. Regions are within 100 kilometers of each other. That is the concept of availability zone. Regions are located around the world. That is true. So two correct choices would be regions consist of multiple availability zones. Regions are located around the world, means geographical location. Okay. Great. Say confirm. Continue. What is an example of high availability in the AWS cloud? High availability means ensuring that an application remains accessible even if a resource fails. Read the other options to first. Consulting technical support at any time of the day. That is not the principle for the high availability. Making any service available for use by paying on demand. Again, that is not the concept of high availability. Deploying in any part of the world by using regions. That is a global reach. Okay. So we have the option called ensuring that an application remains accessible even if a resource fails. The best possible choice. Okay. Which service can help a company detect an outage of its website and redirect users to the alternate server? When this type of question would be there, Route 53 would be a choice. It is a DNS service. Okay. And whenever we talk about Route 53 basically has different routing policies. There's a routing policy called failover routing policy. Okay. So keeping that in mind, what Route 53 can do, Route 53 can redirect users to the alternate server. So CloudFront is not a correct choice. Guard duty, you know, it's a security service. It monitors the workload for unusual activity and unauthorized access, not required here. Route 53, you can see like it resolved domain name to IP addresses through record. So you can use Route 53 routing policies for failover routing, the one I was talking about. Okay. So Route 53 is a correct choice. Trusted advisor is not required. It's a recommendation service. Okay. Which support plan includes a designated AWS technical account manager? When it comes to TAM, straightforward, the answer would be enterprise support. Okay. So you can see enterprise support includes access to the designated TAM. Okay. Developer support is not correct. Basic support is not correct. Business support is not correct. Okay. A company is launching a new application in the AWS cloud. The application will run on an EC2 instance. More EC2 instance will be needed when the workload increases. Which service or tool can the company use to launch the number of instances that will be needed to handle the workload? Means it's talking about meeting the change in demand or meeting the unpredictable traffic. Straightforward, it would be auto scaling. Okay, because auto scaling talks about automatic scaling. Okay, so B is a correct choice here. Load balancing is not correct. App to container is not correct. It's a command line tool. You can use app to container to lift and shift the application from on-premises data center or virtual machines to container platforms on AWS. Okay. And system manager is not correct. It offers the features to manage and to gain operational insight into resources on AWS and on-premises. Okay. EC2 auto scaling is a correct choice. Which of the following are security best practices for using AWS IAM? So identity and access management says that rotate credentials regularly. That is one thing. Okay. First one is not correct. You should not use root user for IAM task. Do not remove credentials if they are never used. Not true. You should keep on rotating the credentials regularly. Enable a multi-factor authentication. Again, that is something related to security. Use inline policies instead of customer managed policies. That is not one of the security best practice. You should use inline policy if you want to have a policy dedicated or if you want to have a policy specific to a particular identity. Okay. So rotate regularly your credentials and enable multi-factor authentications are the correct choices here. Which AWS service can generate a finding when personal identifiable information is stored within the Amazon S3 bucket? So to analyze the sensitive information, it is straightforward Amazon Messi. Okay. So you already had got a question before on Amazon Messi. They have rendered it. They have modified this in another language. Okay. But for this particular scenario, also the answer would be Messi. Okay. You can see Amazon Messi is a correct choice. A company is moving its office and must establish an encrypted connection to AWS, which service will meet the requirement. It's talking about encrypted connection to AWS. No way it's talking about some dedicated bandwidth or the private connections. Okay, so you can choose a VPN. Okay, VPN is a managed service. It establishes a secure encrypted connection between AWS and your on-premise branch office network. Route 53 is a DNS service. Direct connect to privately connect your on-premises network to the cloud. Okay. So direct connect communication will not be encrypted. It will be private connection over a dedicated bandwidth. Okay. And Amazon Connect, I told you using this, you can set up the scalable contact center in the cloud. So it's not a correct choice. So correct choice here is AWS VPN. A company wants to host its relational database on AWS. The database have predefined schema that company needs to replicate on AWS. When it comes to relational database, you can straightforward choose RDS. And Aurora is a flavor of RDS only. So Aurora and RDS you can choose for the relational database setup. Okay. Confirm. And you can see it is the relational database service, RDS and Aurora. If you go to document DB, okay, it can store the semi-structured data and it is a non-relational database service. If you go to Neptune, it is a graph database service and again, Neptune is non-relational. DynamoDB, you know, it's a NoSQL non-relational database service. So all other options were the choices for the non-relational and straightforward in the question. It's asking about relational. Okay. So Amazon Aurora and Amazon RDS would be the correct choices. According to the AWS shared responsibility model, which of the following tasks are AWS responsibility? Again, search for physical first. So physical security of the AWS facilities, it would be the one. Okay. And when it is talking about hypervisor, okay, so hypervisor would be the responsibility of AWS again. Now read the other options, which is not correct for this situation. Encrypting customer data, that is the responsibility of customer. Patching operating system on EC2, again, when it's talking about guest operating system, that would be the responsibility of customer. Defining network firewalls inside the VPC, that is the responsibility of customer. So two options, the physical security of AWS facilities and patching and updating the hypervisor. A company has a Java web application. The company wants to use the auto deployment to create environment and deploy new versions of its application. It is talking about auto deployment. Okay. And just talking about Java web application. We know that in AWS, we have a concept of elastic beanstalk, which provides your platform and which is a developer friendly, provides your support for different languages to bring your code and to run your code. Okay. So Beanstalk would be the choice. Other options are not correct because auto scaling is used for automatic scaling. Control tower is used to set up the multi-account architecture at a scale, okay, with a governance policies. And EC2 is an infrastructure as a service. It will not provide you automatic deployment, okay? So Elastic Beanstalk would be the correct choice. A web developer is concerned that a DDoS attack could target an application. Which service or feature can help protect against such an attack? When it comes to DDoS, Shield would be the answer. Okay. And you can integrate Shield with the CloudFront, which is a content delivery network service. So Shield and CloudFront would be the answer. It's asking about two options. Okay. So Shield is a managed distribution denial of service. Okay. That protection service that you can use to help protect against DDoS attack. CloudTrail, you know, it is used for auditing the API activities. CloudFront, Shield standard exists on CloudFront and Route 53, which provides protection against DDoS attacks. So due to the integration of Shield standard with the CloudFront, CloudFront is a correct choice. Okay. Support, it's a plan. Basically, it's offering you a plan that provides access to the tools and expertise that supports the operational health of the workload. And AWS Health Dashboard is used to check AWS Health event, which can affect AWS resources or services in your account. So correct choices for this question would be Shield and CloudFront. A company wants to build a data analytics application that uses Amazon Redshift. The company needs a cost estimate for its future Redshift uses, which tool will be providing a high-level cost estimation. When cost estimation comes into picture, you can choose pricing calculator. Okay. Budget is not true here because it is used to set custom cost and uses budget. Okay. Means you will be alerted when existing workload exceeded the forecasted or the budget. Okay. Or the threshold which you have defined. This pricing calculator gives you the ability to create estimate. Cost Explorer gives you the ability to visualize, understand, and manage your AWS cost and uses. And savings plan are flexible pricing model that you can use for cost savings based on your AWS compute uses. Okay. So here the correct choice would be pricing calculator, which is an IAM best practice for AWS account root user access keys. Best practice says that delete all root user access keys if possible. Okay. You should not create access keys for your root credential because you know that root user is a powerful user. Okay. Use root user credentials to access sensitive information stored in AWS. Not true. Allow the system administrator group to use the root credentials for daily access. Not true. You should not use root credentials for day-to-day work. Use root credentials to access production database instances. So you should not use root credentials for day-to-day work. It is suggested that you can delete all the root user access key if possible. Okay. So A would be the correct choice. Next question. A company needs to run an application on EC2 instances. The running workload cannot be interrupted. The company needs an instance purchasing option that requires no commitment. Which instance purchasing option will meet these requirements most cost effectively? No commitment, remove reserved instances. Okay. It is talking about no interruption, remove spot instances. We have two options left, on demand and dedicated host. Obviously, dedicated host will be expensive as compared to on demand. It's asking about the most cost effective. So straightforward choice would be on demand. And nowhere in the question, it's talking about software licenses. Okay, so on demand would be the choice here. Okay. Which of the following are security principles in the AWS well-architected framework? Data protection is something related to security. Monitoring, alert, and auditing, that is again related to security. Okay. So B and D would be the correct choice. Analyze and attribute expenditure. When it is expenditure, it would be cost optimization. Okay. Traceability is a principle of security pillar. Deploy globally, that is something related to the performance efficiency. Protection is related to security, and operations as code is related to operational excellence. So for me, protect data in transit and at rest. And next one is monitor, alert, and audit actions and changes to AWS resources. Okay. A company has an EC2 instance that must access secret manager to retrieve credentials. Which identity or service is required by the EC2 instance to perform the task? It's talking about access to the secret manager for the EC2 instance. For that, you can make use of IAM role. Okay. So EC2 instance will require an instance profile associated with IAM role to access the secret manager. You know that IAM role is a secure way to provide you the access to AWS services. Okay. Which service can a customer use to set up a management pair account to view the consolidated billing report? When it is talking about consolidated billing, when it is talking about management pair account, straightforward AWS organizations would be the choice. Budget, budget is used to basically generate the alert if you are breaching the threshold you have defined for your cost and uses. Messi is a security service. It uses machine learning to securely analyze any personal identifiable information. QuickSight is a visualization service. Okay. So correct option would be AWS organization. It's an account management service. Okay. A cloud practitioner is developing a disaster recovery plan and intended to replicate data between multiple geographic areas. Which component of the AWS cloud should the company use to meet this requirement? Now, the choice is the scenario is to replicate data between multiple geographic areas. When multiple geographic areas will be in picture, then straightforward AWS regions would be the choice. Okay, because region talks about a geographical location where AWS infrastructure resides. Which option is an AWS Cloud Adoption Framework foundational capability for the operations perspective? Okay. So this cloud adoption framework is something related to the migrations to the cloud. Okay, so we have different perspective. We have people perspective, we have business perspective, we have operations perspective. Okay. So it is talking about the operations perspective. Operations perspective says that you need to manage the performance and capacity. So performance and capacity management would be the correct choice out of all the options mentioned here. Okay. So performance and capacity management is a capability of the operational perspective. Application portfolio management, it's a capability of governance perspective. Identity and access management, as a name is suggesting, security perspective. And product management, it is a perspective which is business one. Okay, so it is a capability of the business perspective. Okay, so out of all these options, performance and capacity management is the capability of operations perspective. And you can always search for AWS CAF Cloud Adoption Framework. You can get these are the capabilities: business, people, governance, platform security, operation, observability, event management, incident and problem management, performance and capacity management. And now come back. Performance and capacity management, operational perspective. Okay. A company does not own a physical data center but needs a network solution that connects employee laptop directly to the AWS cloud. Okay. It's talking about connection between employee laptop to the AWS cloud. They don't own a physical data center. They don't have a physical data center, or they're not owning a physical data center. So client VPN would be the correct choice. Okay, because Outpost is a service in order to extend the AWS infrastructure to the customer premises. Okay. Outpost will not provide a direct connection to AWS for individual laptop. We know VPN, which stands for Virtual Private Network. It's a client-based service, VPN service that gives you ability to securely access your resources, AWS resources, and the resources in your premises. Okay. Snowball Edge, it's a data transfer service, or you can say that it is an offline data transfer service which can be used in order to transfer the large amount of data. And CloudFront, it's a content delivery network service. Okay. Which benefit does Amazon recognition provide? So Amazon recognition provide you the ability to detect object that appears in pictures. Okay. Amazon recognition uses pre-trained machine learning models to detect object in images. First one is not true. The ability to place watermarks on images. Okay. So it uses pre-trained learning models to detect object in images. It does not provide you an ability to add watermarks. Ability to resize millions of images automatically, that is not a job of Amazon recognition. Ability to bid an object detection job. Okay. It is not a capability of the Amazon recognition. But here is one more service you can pay focus upon. If something is related to the object detection, Amazon Mechanical Turk is a service. Okay. So you have got a new keyword called Amazon Mechanical Turk. It is a service that can bid an object detection job. Okay. Which tasks are the customer responsibility according to the AWS shared responsibility model? Remove all the things which is related to the hardware or physical. So B, C will be straightforward remove. Okay. E will be removed, decommission, deprecated storage devices. Okay. We don't have the access to the physical devices. So again, E would be removed. What is left in front of you? Patching the guest operating system, we know. Configuring the firewalls, we know. So these would be the correct choice, A and D. Okay. Which is an AWS best practice for managing account root user. Okay. So it's talking about what is the best practice to manage account root user, and you have to choose one option. So you have to go for the most possible, or you can say that most appropriate answer here. So most appropriate answer as per the question is turn on multi-factor authentication for the root user. Okay. So correct choice would be this one. What are the characteristics of AWS IAM users and group? Okay. When we talk about IAM users and group, we know that group is a collection of users. Okay. So you can say that group is a collection of users. So check that. So group can only contain users and it can't be nested. That is very true. It can only contain user. And you know that a user can be a member of multiple groups. So B would be the correct choice. Okay. Group can be nested and can contain other groups. Not true. A user can only be a member of single group at one time. All the new users are automatically added to a default group. There is no such default group. So B and C are the correct choices. Okay. A company need to transfer 60 terabyte of data to the cloud in a secure manner. Which of the following should the company use to meet the requirement? Okay. So out of all the options mentioned in front of you, none of the option is with respect to a data migration service or data transfer service. You know that Snowball Edge, out of all the options mentioned here, other than Snowball Edge, I will just correct my statement. Other than Snowball Edge, none of the options are the choices for the data transfer service. Either it is EBS, EFS, S3. EBS is a block storage. EFS is a file storage and S3 is an object storage service. So AWS Snowball Edge would be the correct choice. Okay. Which AWS benefit enable user to deploy cloud infrastructure that consists of multiple geographical regions connected by a network with low latency, high throughput, and redundancy? Okay. It's talking about infrastructure consists of multiple geographical locations, means you're talking about a global reachability. So global reach would be the correct choice. Okay. You can see out of all the options, global reach is a correct choice. Which of the following will help a user determine if they need to request a VPC service limit increase? Okay. So out of all the options mentioned here, Trusted Advisor is a recommended service. It's a recommendation service which provides you a best practices or the recommendations on the basis of service quotas that is related to limit. Okay. And that is one of the best practice. Other than we have fault tolerance, we have security, we have cost optimization. Okay. These are other factors too. Okay. So Trusted Advisor is one. Which service or features can control VPC traffic? When it comes to VPC, simply choose security group and network ACL. Okay, what are the other options mentioned here? Direct connect, guard duty, and connect. We know direct connect is used to establish the connection over a private dedicated network. Okay. Guard duty is a security or a threat detection service, and connect is used to set up the contact center. Okay. It's talking about the security features in a VPC which can control the traffic. So security group and network ACLs would be the correct choice. According to the shared responsibility model, which security related tasks are the customer responsibility? Okay. Data encryption is the one. Whenever it comes to hardware, remove it. C is removed. D is removed. Global infrastructure. We don't have the access to the global infrastructure. Edge location, again, it is something related to the global infrastructure. What is left? E is left. So B and E are the correct choices. Client side data encryption and customer data integrity. Which service offers the most cost-effective means of storing static images? Static, when there would be a word and it is talking about most cost-effective storage option, you know Amazon S3 would be the choice. So out of all the options mentioned here, Amazon S3 is a choice here. Okay. A company has a stateless application that can handle the interruptions. The application must be available all day and night. Traffic increases heavily during business hours. It's talking about which instance type for base and peak traffic are the most cost efficient to meet these requirements. Okay. It can it can tolerate interruption, it can accept interruption. Okay. So basically, in case of the peak demand, you can make use of the spot instances. So choose for the option where it is asking about spot instances in the peak demand. Okay. And also it is talking about that your application must be available day and night. Means here you are aware about the consistency of your application. And when it is talking about the most cost efficient, so why not to go for the reserved instances for base traffic? So out of all four options mentioned, you can see we have two options, which is we have only one option which is talking about spot instance for peak traffic. Okay. And there is one more option called D spot instance for peak traffic. But out of B and D, B is saying reserve instance for base traffic, D is saying on demand instances for base traffic. Okay. Nowhere in the question they have mentioned no commitment, and they're asking for the cost efficient. When cost efficient is there, go for the reserve. Okay. So B would be the correct choice. Okay. A company hosts an application on an EC2 instance. The EC2 instance needed to access several resources, including SC and DynamoDB. What is the most operationally efficient solution to delegate permission? It's talking about permission from EC2 to several AWS resources. Okay. So correct choice would be IAM role. Okay. So there are two options with IAM role, A and D. Read them carefully. First one is saying create an IAM role with the required permission, attach the role to the EC2 instance. And D is saying create an IAM role with the required permission, attach the role to the administrative IAM user. Here you want to control the access from EC2. Okay, so A would be the correct choice. Okay. I will again take you back to my last question, just to clarify a few pointers. When I was using this statement, nowhere in the question it is mentioning that like no commitment. Okay, no commitment in the sense I just wanted to highlight that nowhere in the question they're mentioning that they don't want to go into commitment. It means that they're flexible, they can go in the commitment. So my major highlight was on the most cost efficient option, and during the peak time there can be an interruption which can be tolerated. Okay. A company needed to audit its AWS resources. The company must document any changes that have been made to the resources, auditing and changes. So when it comes to auditing and changes, straightforward config would be the correct answer. Artifact, you know, it is to get the access to the compliance document. Inspector, you know, in order to check the vulnerability on your EC2 instances, and CloudWatch is a monitoring service. So my question requirement satisfies with AWS config. Okay. So AWS config is a correct choice. Which compute service is serverless? It is talking about compute service and serverless. Lambda. AWS Lambda is an event-driven serverless compute service. Okay, so Lambda would be the choice. Say continue, and then you can preview, and you can provide acknowledgement. Okay, and say submit answer. As soon as you will do that, it will be submitting your request, and you have completed all the questions. You can see your score by going to domain scores. Okay, it will be refreshed soon. Okay, so you can see with your grace, all the answers are correct. Okay, so again, the idea to record this video was to give you the access of official practice exam of AWS, okay, and also to help you understand what are the set of questions, what is a scenario, what is a situation using which you can build a confidence. Okay, so for this particular session, this is all I wanted to talk with all of you. I will come up with few more recordings where I am going to again talk about few more practice sets in AWS. Okay, so thank you very much for being a great audience. We'll see you all in the next recording. Bye bye and take care.